Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination. What happens when one of the most controversial women in American media confronts a royal who walked away from tradition? Megyn Kelly joined The View for what was supposed to be a polite panel discussion, but when Prince Harry made a bold claim about the dangers of modern technology, Megyn didn't just push back, she called him out. What followed was one of The View's most uncomfortable and viral moments, a fierce, unscripted showdown on love, loyalty, and the hidden damage of screen addiction. By the time producers cut to commercial, the audience was stunned, hashtags were trending, and Prince Harry was visibly shaken. The morning started with typical warmth on The View. Prince Harry, dressed down in a simple dark blazer and open-collared shirt, smiled politely as he took his seat at the famous round table. He was promoting a new mental health initiative focused on digital well-being. Whoopi Goldberg opened the floor. "Harry, you've been vocal lately about tech's impact on mental health. What's your take? Have smartphones made relationships better or worse?" Harry didn't hesitate. "I think smartphones have completely rewired how we connect," he said. "In some ways, yes, there's more access, but real relationships, they're suffering. We're present everywhere except where it matters, with each other." Polite applause. Even Joy Behar nodded. But before Whoopi could transition, Megyn Kelly, who was guest hosting that day, jumped in, tone sharp, smile thin. "Wait a second, Harry. You're criticizing smartphones and screen addiction, but haven't you and Megyn built an entire brand on digital platforms? Netflix deals, Spotify podcasts, documentaries. Is that not screen-based?" The room tensed. Joy raised her eyebrows. The audience buzzed. Harry smiled, tight-lipped. "I'm not saying digital content is bad. I'm saying when we use tech to replace real interaction, we're losing something important." Megyn didn't let go. "Then let's be real. Isn't that exactly what happened with your own family? You stepped away from the monarchy, moved across the world, and built a digital empire. Podcasts, streaming series, social media clips, and now you're warning us about the dangers of screens?" A few gasps from the audience. Harry's smile vanished. His tone shifted. "I left the royal family to protect my mental health and my family's future. That decision had nothing to do with smartphones." Megyn crossed her arms. "Maybe, but if the world's watching you through screens, and you're profiting off that visibility, aren't you part of the very system you claim is destroying connection?" The room crackled with tension. Even Whoopi didn't interrupt. Harry leaned forward, eyes steady. "There's a difference between using tech to share stories and using it to avoid real life. One builds understanding. The other builds walls." A few claps, but Megyn smirked. "And yet, your story is told through screens, carefully edited, polished, and monetized. Is that real connection, or just another version of scrolling past someone else's highlight reel?" The audience was frozen. Whoopi finally cut in, raising her hands. Okay, it's getting real in here. Let's take a quick break and come back to this." But everyone knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The View returned from commercial break, but the tension hadn't gone anywhere. Prince Harry sat a little stiffer in his chair, jaw clenched just enough to be noticeable. Megyn Kelly, poised and composed, was already flipping through her notes like she was ready for round two. Whoopi tried to lighten the mood. "All right, folks, we're back, and yes, things got a little heated, but that's what happens when smart people care about the topic, right?" She glanced between Harry and Megyn. Neither smiled. Joy leaned in with her signature grin. "Let's pick it up where we left off. Harry, you're saying tech hurts real relationships, but Megyn's right, we all use screens now, even to connect. Are you being a little nostalgic for a world that just doesn't exist anymore?" Harry responded slowly, choosing every word with care. "No, I'm not nostalgic. I'm concerned. We've traded depth for dopamine. We don't listen to each other, we perform for each other. We scroll past real feelings. And yeah, I've been guilty of it too, but that's why I speak about it." Some applause. The audience was clearly split, some nodding, others cautious. Megyn tilted her head, voice laced with challenge. But Harry, what you call depth sounds suspiciously like control. The old world, royal institutions, strict expectations, traditional family values, that wasn't always deep. Sometimes it was just silence and suppression. Technology gave people, especially women, a voice they never had. Is that really a bad thing? Harry blinked, surprised by the turn. I'm not attacking voices, Megyn. I'm talking about distraction. About a mother scrolling through Instagram while her child is trying to tell them about their day. About partners who sit in bed together and barely speak because they're glued to feeds. We're more connected than ever, but somehow we're more alone. That landed. The audience murmured in agreement, a few clapping. But Megyn leaned forward, sharp as ever. But yet, you and Megyn left your family behind, your real family, and replaced them with curated media appearances. How is that any less isolating than the distractions you're criticizing? The question hit like a hammer. Whoopi shifted in her chair. Joy muttered, "Oh boy," under her breath. Harry's jaw tightened. I left because silence was killing me. Because being in the same room doesn't mean you're truly seen. Sometimes tech gives people an escape, yes, but sometimes it's the only way they can be heard. The room stilled. His words had weight, emotional, raw. But Megyn wasn't done. Then say that. Don't act like smartphones are the root of all evil, when, in reality, it's how we use them. Blame the culture, blame the institutions, blame the fear, but don't blame the phone in someone's hand. Harry nodded, surprisingly. You're right. It's not the phone. It's what we're trading for the phone. And I worry we're losing the quiet moments, the real ones, the ones that actually stitch families together. He paused and then added with a wry smile. And maybe I'm the last person anyone wants to hear that from, but it doesn't make it less true. That moment, honest, self-aware, drew the biggest applause of the day. Joy finally broke the silence, laughing nervously. Well, this went from tech talk to therapy real fast. Whoopi raised her hand. But that's why it matters. This isn't about phones. It's about attention, about presence. And I think what Harry's saying, whether you agree or not, is that we can't pretend screens don't change how we show up. Megyn nodded, but her tone was firm. Fine, but don't shame people who do show up, even if it's through a screen. Some families only survive because of texts, video calls, and group chats. Presence looks different now, and sometimes it's the best people can give. Harry looked at her, softer now. Then maybe the goal is to make sure we're giving each other the best, not the easiest. Another wave of applause. The fire hadn't died down, but now it was tempered with reflection. And the audience could tell. This debate wasn't just about smartphones anymore. It was about the very fabric of how we love, listen, and live together. The View's audience was no longer just watching a debate. They were witnessing a collision of worldviews, of personal truths worn like armor. The applause had died down, but the tension in the air was thick, palpable, as if everyone knew the next words could change the entire tone of the conversation. Prince Harry sat quietly for a moment, glancing down at the table, thumbs gently pressing together, a habit from years of cameras capturing his every move. Then he looked up. You know, before I met Megyn, I never really thought about what it meant to be emotionally seen. I grew up with a camera in my face, reporters in my business, headlines about me. But nobody ever asked, "Are you okay?" Not really. The room fell still. Even Megyn paused, listening. Harry continued, his voice soft but piercing. My mother, she taught me how to show up for people. Not with posts, not with tweets, with time, with presence. When she died, I was told to walk behind her coffin in front of the world, smile for the cameras, be the strong little prince. But inside, I was shattered. Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Whoopi leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Harry continued, I spent years pretending I was fine. That silence cost me more than anyone knows. And now I see it in young people, in families. Everyone so connected, yet no one checking in, no one asking, really asking, "How are you?" A woman in the front row visibly wiped away a tear. Harry looked toward Megyn, not with anger, but with weight. So when I talk about the danger of screens, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm pleading, because I know what it feels like to be surrounded by the world and still feel completely alone. The silence after his words was almost sacred, until Megyn spoke, slowly, thoughtfully. "I won't pretend that didn't hit me," she admitted, her voice quieter now. "I lost my sister to suicide when I was younger. I still remember the last time I called her. I was in a rush. I told her I'd text later." The audience held its breath. She never answered that text. Joy was stunned. Whoopi blinked hard. Even Harry sat straighter. "I get it," Megyn said, her voice catching for the first time. "We let this world convince us we're connected just because we're reachable. But reachable isn't the same as reachable here." She tapped her heart. Applause started slowly. The audience was no longer watching two opponents. They were watching two people break through the noise. Harry nodded, visibly moved. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Megyn said quietly. Joy leaned forward, her tone softer now. "So what do we do? What's the solution? No one's giving up phones. That's not real. But how do we keep our relationships real?" Harry smiled gently. "We start by putting them down. 1 hour a day, 1 dinner a week. We start by showing our kids, our partners, our friends, you matter more than the scroll." Whoopi added, "We've got to teach presence again, like we teach reading or math, because otherwise the next generation will grow up fluent in emojis but illiterate in eye contact." The audience burst into applause. Megyn folded her hands, then said, "We also have to stop pretending that performing our love online is the same as showing up. A like isn't a hug. A repost isn't a visit. We've all been guilty of it, me included." Harry looked at her, and for the first time all episode, they smiled at each other. What started as a clash had turned into a mirror, reflecting pain, growth, and an unspoken agreement that being present is the new rebellion. The segment ended with a standing ovation. No music, no flashy transition, just raw, human silence, the kind you only get when people finally stop scrolling and start listening. The studio had gone quiet after the emotional confessions from both Prince Harry and Megyn Kelly, but as the cameras kept rolling, the tension hadn't disappeared. It had simply taken a new shape. The vulnerability shared moments ago was real, but it didn't mean the fire was gone. Whoopi tried to steer the conversation back gently. "So we've heard powerful points from both of you, the personal side, the social side, but there's still something we haven't addressed: accountability. Are we, as public figures, setting the right example, or just adding to the noise?" Megyn sat up straighter, her journalistic edge snapping back into focus. "I'm glad you said that, Whoopi, because, let's be honest, some of the people warning us about tech addiction are also the ones flooding our screens with curated content. Prince Harry, with respect, you talk about digital detox, but you and Megyn have a $100 million deal with Netflix. You live in a mansion in Montecito. How can someone drowning in privilege preach about presence?" The audience gasped. Joy's eyebrows shot up. Whoopi blinked slowly. Harry's smile faded instantly. "I'm not preaching, Megyn," he said, voice low but clear. "I'm sharing what I've learned, often the hard way." Megyn leaned in. "Then maybe it's time to admit that part of the damage isn't just the screen, it's who's on it. The influencers, the filtered lives, the royals turned content creators. Kids don't just scroll, they compare to people like you." Harry's expression tightened. I never asked to be compared. I was born into a role I didn't choose, and now that I've stepped away, I'm trying to be honest about the cost of it all. That's not hypocrisy, that's evolution. The audience murmured, half supportive, half unsure. Megyn pressed on. But stepping away and cashing in on the exit, that's a choice. You traded one spotlight for another. And if you're going to talk about being present, then maybe don't disappear behind brand deals, book tours, and press cycles. Harry sat forward, sharper now. I disappeared because staying was killing me. Because when your life is run by tabloids and courtiers, and no one protects your family, you leave. Not for fame, for safety. The temperature in the room shifted. Applause broke out from some corners of the audience. Megyn wasn't clapping. Safety is one thing, but there are millions of people struggling to raise kids with 2 jobs, no nannies, no media teams, and they're the ones being told to unplug by someone whose life is built on media exposure. That's the disconnect. Whoopi stepped in gently. Megyn, I hear you, but I also think there's something to be said for someone with that reach, using it to say something real, even if it's messy. Harry nodded slowly, voice more grounded now. I'm not perfect, I'm not a guru, but I'm a father, and when my son looks at me, I want him to see my eyes, not the glow of a phone screen. That's all I'm saying. That's the starting point. Applause again, this time louder. Joy spoke up, surprisingly balanced. You both have points. Yes, there's privilege in the message, but there's also truth. We're all trying to navigate a world that's rewired our relationships, sometimes for better, often for worse. Maybe the real conversation isn't about blame, it's about awareness. Megyn finally nodded, her tone cooling, but not softened. Fair, but awareness means facing uncomfortable truths, even for people with platforms, especially for them. Harry looked over, meeting her gaze. Then maybe we just did. Silence. A heavy, thoughtful silence. The moment felt less like a fight and more like the final wave of a storm, powerful, cleansing, unsettling. The audience began to applaud, some on their feet, some just nodding quietly. Whoopi exhaled like a referee at the final bell. Well, damn! If you tuned in for light morning banter, sorry! But if you stayed, maybe you just heard something that'll change how you look at your dinner table tonight. The crowd roared with laughter and applause, and through the clash, through the contradictions, one thing had become crystal clear. This wasn't just about screens, it was about what we risk losing every time we choose ease over effort, convenience over connection. What are we really scrolling past? As the View returned from its final commercial break, the mood in the studio had changed. The shouting was over, the fire had burned out. But what remained was the smoke, thick, lingering, and impossible to ignore. Whoopi leaned in, addressing the audience with a tone both sincere and worn. We've had a morning, haven't we? She said, laughter. But let me say this, conversations like this aren't about winning, they're about waking up. Megyn sat quietly, her expression unreadable but composed. She wasn't here to apologize, but her earlier edge had softened into something quieter, weightier. Prince Harry adjusted in his seat, no longer defensive, no longer guarded, just tired and honest. You know, for most of my life, I thought duty meant silence, that being part of something bigger meant disappearing inside it. But silence doesn't heal anything. It just passes the pain down. He paused, locking eyes with the crowd. If we want to fix what's broken in our families, in our relationships, in ourselves, we have to be present. Not just online, not just in photos, but in the uncomfortable, awkward, messy moments. Joy Behar chimed in, for once without sarcasm. I think that's what people are afraid of. The mess, the real. It's easier to scroll than to sit through a hard conversation with someone you love. The panel nodded, even Megyn. Megyn finally added, I stand by what I said. We all need to be held accountable. But I also think we need to give space for growth. Nobody gets it right all the time, especially not under a spotlight. The audience applauded. Slower now. Thoughtful claps. Whoopi closed the segment with a signature look into the camera. So, what are we really scrolling past? Your partner at dinner? Your kid waiting for your attention? Your own damn reflection? I don't know, but maybe, just maybe, it's time to look up. The camera panned across the table one last time, from the former prince to the former Fox News anchor to the faces of millions watching from couches, kitchen counters, and phones across the country. And for a moment, they all felt it. That pull to put the phone down, to listen, to show up, to be real. If you liked this powerful moment, make sure to subscribe for more celebrity clashes, emotional showdowns, and unforgettable TV moments. Drop a comment below. Are smartphones destroying our ability to truly connect?